Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Real Life Health Show. We have a special guest here today. This is Kristine Matheson. Hello, Kristine. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Paul. How are you going?
I'm doing great, everybody. Kristine's in Australia. So thank you for taking the time to share this important message that you have to share. So I always say we can get very inspired through people's real life experiences and also through our own, of course.
Mm,
You have an experience that is people need to hear about, especially people that are where you were. Because when I do health retreats, I try to bring in speakers who can not just reach people with information, but also with an emotional level because they're going through the same thing. So,
yes.
Kristine, can we start off by saying how you started off when you were growing up? Were you into health at all, and what happened? And then tell us, everybody, for those of you that don't know, uh, briefly tell us who you are and what happened, and then we'll get into how it started.
Okay, well, I was diagnosed with terminal stage 4 melanoma cancer in 2005. I'd had a melanoma taken off my back in 2003, and it was stage 4 then, and the doctor that took it off didn't tell me it had come back, you know, as a stage 4 then. So in 2005, same around the same time, I had time off because I wasn't feeling fantastic. It's funnily enough, in the July, I'd gone to the Hippocrates Centre and just did a 10 days of juicing and,
The one
clearing.
here in Florida or the one in Australia?
No, the one in Australia down at
Okay.
Mudgeeraba. Anyway, I went in there and I came home and I was feeling brilliant. And then my husband came home and said, look, I need you back at work. We've got these people who, owe us a lot of money and they're not paying and blah, blah, blah. And he was an amazing builder. He was absolutely brilliant. So he wasn't somebody who did a crappy job. These were just dishonest people that have a history of doing all those things that I wouldn't have actually signed contracts with. I was always his what do you call it? Psychic sort of, I suppose, person who came in and said yay or nay about people. But I'd been off for a while, trying just, I hadn't felt,
So the
terrific.
melanoma you had, so just for people to know, there's two types of skin cancer. There's one that's a basal cell carcinoma that
Yes.
is very curable and is not as serious if it's taken care of. But then there's the melanoma, which is if it's not taken care of, it's very serious.
Yeah, it
So
is. And a lot of people think that because they've got melanoma, they're going to die, and because they get told so many different negative things. When I went to the oncologist, they told me that I had 6, maybe 12 months to live. And I walked out and thought, hang on, that can't be right. I always felt that I have this bigger purpose in this life.
how old were you
I was 55 and I'm
when
74 now.
you were 55, almost
Mhm.
20 years ago? You were told you had 6 months to live
Yeah.
because they found a spot of cancer on your back.
Well, that was before, that was 2003. Didn't know about it then. How we now found out about me having it in through my body is I'd had this lump coming up in my neck. And I'd had an uncle when I was a kid who had a lump on the back of his neck and he died of lung cancer. So, and to top it off, my husband and I were ballroom dancers and we were doing competition all the time. So I was very fit. And when I was walking upstairs, I was getting puffed out. So I went to my friend who was a holistic doctor, and I said to her, and I'd had chronic fatigue, and she sort of had, helped me through a lot of that. And I was very much into food as medicine anyway, but I wasn't eating properly either. I was eating, even though vegan, I wasn't eating enough raw food back then. So they did a fine needle biopsy in my neck, and it turned out that it was melanoma. Then they did all the tests that they do, and I had a big tumor behind the aorta and in my lymph nodes and in my lungs, etc. So they gave me this negative look, get your affairs in order talk. So I then went away and I went to
So
a Tibetan.
the melanoma, so that is that skin cancer, or is that something different?
a skin cancer.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So they found it
It
on your
was
neck.
from the one that found what happened is when they found it on the outside of my body, it spread through the inside.
Got you. Got you.
Yeah. So okay. So I went to a little Tibetan place in the mountains here near the Sunshine Coast called Chenrezig, and I worked on my chakras and my a lot of meditation and affirmations to get rid of the subliminal message that I was going to die. After 4 days, I was able to come home and then intuitively put my program together. I guess because I already knew quite a bit about food anyway, and I'd been doing a lot of study because of my chronic fatigue. And I knew that gut health was important and all those sorts of things. So I put my program together. And then I was within 5 months, I was over the cancer. And so after that, I suppose that was 2006, 2005, getting towards 2006. And then after that, in 2009, I decided to write a book. And it was a step-by-step handbook for beating cancer. So it starts off with working on your gut health, then a juicing program, and then a lifestyle program. So how you should live every day. I do base it on an 80%. I don't base it on 100% because most people can't get their head around that anyway. And so we've got
80%, 80% what?
raw.
Okay, 80% raw, just so people have an understanding.
Yeah,
So
sorry. Yeah.
yeah, so basically you diagnosed, you told you have 6 months to live. You
Yeah.
go away to clear your head and get an understanding of what you have to do. You come back,
Yeah.
you put yourself on a you create a program of eating better and healing your body through cleansing, and you get better from cancer after 6 months.
Yeah. 5 months.
5 months. Now, how do you know after 5 months you were better? Did you go to the doctor and they
Yes.
said you don't have cancer?
I had tests. I had tests done. A year later, um, I had all the blood tests and all that sort of stuff done, and I was clear. A year later, because I was going to write a book, we went and had some scans done, which I didn't want to do, but I wouldn't let them put the dye through me because back then it was very toxic. I don't know whether they're doing that now still, who knows. And so, and they could see that all the tumors and everything had disappeared. So, and my blood tests are every year I go and have blood tests done just to make sure that I'm still clear. And also because I'm out there educating people and running retreats myself. And I mean, I'm not running any more retreats now. I stopped the last one in February. I found it, I've run 4 retreats since my husband passed. And I find it very difficult to deal with doing those without him, even though I've got a great team of people. It's kind of like I feel as though my books, it's more important. I concentrate on getting my books out there and finishing more books and educating people in a way and doing podcasts and interviews like I'm doing with you and, just getting that word out there to say to people, our body is an amazing machine and we should never, ever underestimate the ability we have to heal ourselves. And I feel that just so much negative information is out there and people I know people that know my staff who know me really well, even relatives who have been diagnosed with cancer and they still go to the doctors, they still get chemotherapy, they still do this thing. They live in this, I suppose it's brainwashed world from when they were children. And then some of us have kind of got this awakened, we're awakened in a different way. We have an inner knowing, and I guess my journey is to awaken people, but also let people that are awake know that there is a program they can put together, which is very simple and it's a lifestyle program. So I'm not always perfect,
Sure.
I
So I want to get exactly, I want to get this clear because I got to ask some questions related to this. So you said many years ago you had this melanoma, but they didn't tell you. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that was 2 years before.
So
The,
2 years before you had it, and when you say they didn't tell you, so they misdiagnosed you. What exactly happened?
no, the doctor took I went to a doctor that I didn't know. I was in between holistic doctors because,
Okay.
I only ever used to see a doctor because of my hormones. We women go through these hormonal changes. And I was in between, and I was having a coffee with my sister, and I said, I've got this funny thing on my back, and I said, it's a bit itchy and it feels a bit weird. And I said, look, there's a doctor upstairs. I'll go and have a look, see him. And I went up there, and he took, oh, I can take that off, he said, and he took it off. And then when the reports came back to him, they were stage 4 not metastasized, but stage 4 melanoma, which he didn't pass on to me. And so when I was diagnosed with stage 4 metastasized melanoma, they called in for all those reports, and he had not passed that information on. So my friend, who was a doctor, who I said it was a naturopathic doctor as well, she was a medical doctor as well as naturopath, she told me that he knew this 2 years ago. But in a funny sort of way, it's kind of been a blessing that I wasn't told, because perhaps, everything I've done to overcome metastasized melanoma and the books, etc., wouldn't have been out there to help people. Because, my stuff's been out since 2009. And even in America, Balboa, under the Hay House banner, published my book back in 2011. I've written a 3rd edition now. And the only reason the editions change is because I add more recipes, and sometimes there's products that may not be on the market anymore, and I have to replace them with
Sure.
something else that can
Sure.
support the immune
So
system. Yeah.
sure. So before you got diagnosed or even had that thing on your back and went to the doctor, how was your diet and your lifestyle? Because you said you were going to a holistic doctor, but you were also drinking coffee. So how was it? Were you eating healthy, living healthy, or you not
Well,
too good?
I was vegan, and I wasn't into sugar, and I wasn't into dairy. I gave up dairy years before because I have an allergy to casein. And so dairy wasn't in the thing. I think my biggest problem was that, I had a bit of I'd had an Epstein-Barr virus, which led to chronic fatigue. And that was through some stress. So I think, and I'd do things like when we'd come home from dance practice or dance lessons, I'd come home at 8 o'clock at night. My husband used to say he'd had cancer 4 years before I met him as well. So in 1980, he'd had cancer and beat it and overcame it just through diet, and exercise and all that sort of thing. So I knew, I had I didn't go through that experience with him. So I wasn't sort of tuned into making sure there was always raw food on my plate. So we'd get home and we'd say, well, what are we going to have to eat? And I'd say, oh, look, I just will have a little, because I used to just eat Essene bread then, but I'd have Essene bread with some peanut butter on it. He'd have the Essene bread with peanut butter on it. It's always organic too, by the way. We're into organics for a long time. But he would always throw a salad together on his plate, always. And I used to go, oh, yuck, there's no dressing, there's no this, and I didn't want to do that. So he was always covering his raw, and I wasn't covering it enough. So, so basically my diet was good most of the time, but a lot of the time it wasn't. Too much cooked food. I was into too much cooked food. And as you know, when you cook food, it takes away a lot of the nutrients. Even though Essene bread is a sprouted bread, it still goes through a heat process that's probably a little bit higher than, like, I have a dehydrator. I don't cook anything, like dehydrate anything above 45 degrees. Yeah, that's 45 degrees in our Celsius,
Yeah.
our, I don't know what that is in in America. I don't know what Fahrenheit is. And so now, of course, I don't always stick to everything 100%, but I'm just about to go and do another juice fast soon, because I feel like I've gone through these emotional changes regarding my husband, and I've put on a bit of weight, and I feel not 100% myself. I went into myself a little bit when you're grieving. And so now I'm coming back out of it. Not the grief's not gone, but trying to get myself back on the same plane as I was before. So, I'll go, I mean, my gut's good. So I just do a juice fast. So my body settles down and comes back into, and so I go back on my 100% raw again because I
Uh,
like my 100% raw.
well, this is absolutely amazing that you go through this and you overcome it. You're writing these books, you make this program out to help people. Tell
Yes.
us some of the stories that uh, people have had using the work you've done that maybe they were in the same situation. So maybe if there's a viewer that has been diagnosed with cancer, definitely get Kristine's books, everybody. I'll put the link below on a website, but tell us like some of the transformations that people have had using the information you put out there.
Well, I mean, I find that where some people get a bit confused, they think that because I've had melanoma, it's not going to fix their cancer. But I've worked with people with ovarian cancer and liver cancer and you name it. That all the cancers are out there. If their mind is around the fact that the body is healing itself through giving it the right nutrition, it doesn't matter the cancer. Now, there's sometimes a hormonal factor with some people that can do all the right things and then still have a bit of a struggle and take longer, and they've got to look at where their hormones are and how they can work with that. And they need a holistic doctor who specialises in that area to work with me. But I've had some amazing things around the world. I've counselled people worldwide, and in the UK and America and Germany. I mean, I had one woman who came to see me in a wheelchair at a book signing in 2010, and she lived in Germany, but her brother used to deal with my husband and I in the building industry. We used to he used to do all our cabinet making, and they came to see me, and I gave her my time and energy, and they put her on a program, and she'd had what was the cancer she had? She'd had one where they I think it was tied up with the liver as well. Anyway, she was pretty bad. Well, she was pretty riddled with it. Well, she got over it and still is today, you know. But there's just so many different stories I could tell you. I mean, there's so many different cancers and
So,
working with so many different people.
so
Yeah.
give us some of the things that people can do if somebody's been diagnosed with cancer. What's the first thing you would tell them to do if somebody calls you? Does it depend on the situation, or would you tell them no matter what, this is what you got to do?
No matter what you've got to do. That's what I say. First, you've got to get your gut health right. And there's a little spit test that I get people to do that's in my book. It's all, one of the great things that I don't think there's been anybody in the world who has ever written a step-by-step handbook for beating cancer. Or nowadays I put preventing and survival because you've got to be careful of the legal terms that, you come out with nowadays, particularly with the media so focused on the negative, as we all know, worldwide, especially as, they're very much supported by the medical industry. Sorry, there's a bit of noise out there now. But what was the question again?
The
Sorry. Oh, yeah,
question
what
is,
I do?
yeah.
The gut health. So they've got to get their gut health right. And there's a program I put people on to do that. It's to do with the yeast infections, what you call candida and parasites that they have in their gut. That gets removed. It takes 30 days to do that. And then they go on a 28-day program of juicing. But you have to, when you go on a juicing program, you have to transition first with raw food for 4 days. And at the end of it, you transition out with raw food as well so you can get your bowel working again correctly. But there's a program in there that tells them what to do and what to take and that sort of thing. And then you go on a lifestyle program, which is how we should live our life all the time to prevent it coming back. And it doesn't mean that in 2 months they're going to get over their cancer. It usually takes a minimum of 5 months. Some people, depending on the cancers and depending on the mental attitude, can take 6 to 8 months. But it's usually about 5 to 6 months for them to come back, their body back to normal.
Wow, wow,
And that's the experiences I've had with people. And
wow.
I'm not saying everybody has has gotten through with what I've worked on. And it's usually because they've had chemotherapy or other medical interference beforehand. So it's when the body gets hit with chemo, as you know, it takes away the good part of your immune system. And so it makes it difficult for people.
And for
Yeah.
your personal life and where you are now, tell us how do you monitor your health and what are you doing currently? Have you added new things or are you just getting back into stride and doing things? Do you have bad days? What's your average diet like? Give us a little update on what you're doing these days.
Well, my average day when I'm looking after myself, properly, is I have a fruit salad and cashew cream with coconut oil on it and maca and a few other amino acids and all sorts of stuff, like cacao and all that sort of stuff on my fruit salad. And then for lunch, I would normally have some sort of a raw meal. It could be a raw lasagna. It could be raw tacos. It could be whatever. Sometimes, though, I might have a potato and lentil pie with a big salad. I only ever really have two big meals a day, and at night time, it's usually something light. It might just be a juice or a smoothie or something like that when I'm doing things correctly. When I don't do things correctly, which I've been up and down since my husband passed, I tend to fall off the planet every now and then, have some sourdough breads or something like that. I do still try to make sure I get plenty of raw in my food during the day. Lately, I've been a little bit naughty, and I'm going back. I'm back on that, back on the train again. For going back to how I normally lived and how I lived when my husband was here all the time. I think I told you he was given a blood thinner before.
Well, I was going to ask you about your husband. I was going to say, so what, so you said he passed, so about 2 years ago now?
3 years ago on the 8th of August.
Okay, so you wanted to make in this interview to warn people about what
Yes,
happened
I
with
do.
him. So share that story.
Well, he had a cyst taken off his back, and it caused a staph infection, and he nearly died. They had to put a tube through under his arm and through his heart and everything, and lots and lots and lots of antibiotics, unfortunately. We just started building him up, but it caused at what they call atrial fibrillation. Now, this is a man that was very, very fit. And gym every day, eating properly. We were always on a minimum of 80% raw. Sometimes we'd go through periods where we're always just on 100% raw. I used to look after our protein levels properly, all that sort of stuff. So he was a very fit man. And a doctor that we knew, a heart specialist we knew quite well, always used to say to Wayne, oh, you don't take any drugs, do you, Wayne? And he'd say, no. He said, good, don't. Now, he's a heart specialist who didn't like drugs, but he used to feed it out to people. So when we went to see him because Wayne wasn't, they said, look, you've got atrial fibrillation. So we went and see this guy, and he said, look, you're really going to have to go on a blood thinner, Wayne. And we said, no, we don't want to put him on anything like that. He has heaps of ginger. He has all his diets, a plant-based, mostly raw diet, la, la, la. But he did what a lot of doctors do, and we fell for it. He'll get blood clots if he doesn't do this. So, and he was really, really pushy. And because he was always supportive of, of our lifestyle, we fell into that pit. Well, within a very short period of time, he started losing his memory and behaving, like he came home one day with the keys in his hand, and he's standing at the end of the table and hadn't remembered even coming home. So I took him back. This is just before he passed. I took him back 4 days before he died and went back to the cardiologist, and I said, look, told him exactly what was happening with him. His memory's going. He's had to put, the 2 sessions of his natriopathy on hold at the moment because he can't concentrate. And I said, I want him off this. I'm going to take him off this drug because he's on lots of ginger. He's on lots of nutritional supplements, and his diet's good, blah, blah, blah. as I'm walking out the door, he said, "You make sure he stays on that blood thinner, Kristine, otherwise he'll have he'll have a blood clot." And I had him booked into a neurologist for about another 8 days away from there. And when we got home, I said, "Well, what do you want to do? You want to sort of wait till you see the neurologist?" And he's decided to stay on the medication until we saw the neurologist. Well, that was the Tuesday. On the Friday night, he collapsed, and on the Sunday, he passed away. And the neurologist at the hospital came out and said to us that he had had a massive brain bleed caused by the blood thinner. And that's on his death certificate too. And it's they call the drug rivaroxaban or Xalto, and they're still prescribing it here in Australia. But I believe that I believe that America doesn't prescribe it anymore, but they're still prescribing other things. I mean, Bayer and Johnson was sued about a month later, for $750 million for that drug, with 250 complainants.
Wow.
So here we are in Australia prescribing it. Yeah, which is very sad.
Wow. Well, I hope everyone is listening to what you're saying, and that drug and any drugs that they really consider the lifestyle changes they can make, and not be persuaded by the doctors so quickly. And hopefully they'll get your book, and that'll help them
Yeah.
to see this. So I tell everybody, look, at least try it before you deny it. This information that's out there is proven to work. There's testimonials from Kristine and others out there that have healed themselves by eating a more natural way and living a more natural lifestyle. So
Well, this
before
is what we
you,
have to do. Yeah, and exercise and sunshine and positive, you have to develop a positive attitude and know that our bodies are really amazing machines, and we do have that ability to heal, and we don't need to take a drug. Drugs are poison. I mean, look, if you there's a little thing I put in my book. It's something. There's a doctor that said, if you get a headache and you take an Aspro, does that mean that you actually the Aspro, it takes away the headache? Does that mean that that's going to cure you of your headaches? Because it doesn't. It actually it's quite the opposite. Do you have an Aspro deficiency? Because you haven't been taking. They prescribe this out to people all the time. Do we have an Aspro deficiency because my headache went away? It's just crazy
yeah, for
stuff.
those of you in the United States watching, I think she means aspirin, but in Australia, I guess they say astro.
Yeah, aspirin. Yeah, same
So,
thing.
so tell us, Christina, about your books. How many books have you written?
Well, I'm on the third edition to my cancer to wellness one. I've written a book called Fully Naked. I'll show you. This has got healthy cakes and desserts. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yep. And that's got a series. I'm doing a series of these, and they're all on Amazon right now because I've had publishers before, my first book was #2 behind Eat, Pray, Love, my first edition. Here in Australia, I don't know here in Australia it was #2 behind Eat, Pray, Love back in 2010. So it sold really well and there was good marketing behind it. But as I've gone on, I've needed to add more recipes and expand on the gut program and all that sort of stuff. I'm in the middle of writing a book called Any Disease Will Do. And the reason I'm writing that book is because I've helped people with diabetes, multiple sclerosis, heart disease, you name it. I've helped people with so many different chronic illnesses that have been created through their environment, through their living circumstances, etc. That's why I'm finishing off Any Disease Will Do. And my Fully Naked series has, will have, I'm in the middle of doing that too. So that'll have all your smoothies and your juices. I did write a book called Kristine Matheson's Holistic Wellness Recipes. That was in one book, but I didn't put it onto anything because I wanted to split it all up and do it as a series, because some people have got books already on, juicing or whatever. So I've done that. I was a co-author of Olivia Newton-John's Live Wise recipe book. And see, well, she did that too. She went back and did a whole heap of medical stuff, which I was shocked about, which is very sad. She died a year to the day that my husband passed, actually,
Wow.
a year later. And so, yeah, but there's lots of books that I haven't published out there, but I've always given them away at retreats. I usually put them in their little care package, I put a little package together for all my guests. And, one of the things that it's always a book in there that I've written.
So
But
what
yeah.
where do you stand on supplements? Do you take supplements?
Yeah, I don't take a lot now, but through the process of having cancer, I have supplements because it sort of helps support the immune system, but I don't want people taking them forever. I mean, I
Sure.
only take a minimal amount now. I mean, I take when I'm a little bit stressed, and I've been through that. I've got one that I call adrenal plex, and it supports my adrenals. I every now and then go on what they call as a parasite cleanse, which I'll be doing soon when I go on my juicing again. And that's because you just don't know what you're picking up out there, and it's and the probiotics are really important for anybody over 40. To help with your gut health. I think we should do that for at least half the year anyway. Yeah, but I'm not huge on throwing too many supplements out. I'd like to create my own organic stuff eventually. I think if I get involved in doing that, I think it will be good, because there's a lot of supplements that are practitioner brand, which are very good here in Australia, but I'd rather have an organic brand. I do have organic stuff too, but I'd rather have organics. In America, they've got some great stuff in, for organic supplements.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
great. Well, all your books are for sale on Amazon, but they're also for sale on your website, correct?
Yes, you go through my website, and if anybody subscribes to the website, then they get free recipes sent out to them from time to time, and a newsletter. And I don't inundate people with stuff. You know how some people, when you sign up to a newsletter every day, there's something sitting in there. Well, I don't do that. Yeah, the website's The Forgotten Secret. So it's TheForgotten, and it's secrets with an S.com.
Okay, wonderful. I'm going to put a link below to that, and I know you're so busy, and I so thank you for your time today for this interview. And I want to encourage people to ask questions below. And if you're in Australia or anywhere in the world, as Kristine said, she counsels and works with people all over. So you can
Yeah.
contact her through her website, and she has other great interviews and teachings online on YouTube. If you just type in her name, you'll see some of them. You're an inspiration and a great example that people should never give up. And I thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to having you back again after we get all these questions, and maybe we can go over them. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds terrific. Yeah, that's good. And look, if they want to get in touch with me, just they can. I mean, apart from subscribing to the newsletter, they can also, if they want to communicate with me straight away, and I answer fairly quickly. It's Chrissy at The Forgotten Secrets. So
Rissi at
they
the
can,
Forgotten Secrets. And your
yeah, with
email's on
K.
your
It's
website.
pardon? It
Your
should be on
email's
my
on.
website.
Okay, your email's on your website. Okay. So before we finish, is there anything else you want to share with the people before we finish here?
Um, I guess yes, I do really. One of the things that I think is important, really, really important, is your mental health regarding all this, whether it's cancer or diabetes or some other chronic illness, is to get your head around the fact, as I said before, in the interview, about the fact that our bodies are fantastic machines and we can heal ourselves this way. But the mind has to come into play. Because if you still have in the back of your head you're going to die, see, I walked in my wellness, and my friend who was a naturopathic doctor as well as a medical doctor, she had me in the first week going into her surgery every day, putting me on these machines and doing all this. And one day I went, that's it. I walked out and said, when I get well, I'll come back to you, I said to her. And that's when I went off to Chenrezig and got rid of that negative thought. I'd walk through the door and all the nurses would cry and all this sort of stuff, thinking I was going to be dying. And I thought, I've got to get out of this medical, even the people who support me, in regards to wanting to give me the right supplements and wanting to do all this stuff like my friend Jung did. But, the whole thing is, when you walk away and you do your meditation and you do your affirmations and you do all this sort of stuff to get rid of that subliminal message, then you can walk in your wellness. And then you don't even, all you do is you put the program together and stop worrying about whether you're going to be dying or not, and stop worrying about, gee, do I really have to get myself checked out all the time? Some people go and get themselves CT scanned every month and it causes them to die because the radiation's going through them. They're never going to get well. So you just got to walk in your wellness and wait at least 6 months before you go and have any tests done.
Sure.
And
Important
that's
information.
probably one of the most important things, I think, is apart from, the usual give up sugar and processed carbohydrates and dead cows and poor animals and all this sort of thing. Yeah.
Absolutely important advice, good information, and I want everyone to go to your website and check it out. And again, thank you for your time, and
Thank you, Paul, for
keep
reaching
up the
out.
great work you're doing. Don't stop because
Thank
we need
you.
this information out there. So
Yeah,
thank you
same
very
to you.
much.
You're doing a fantastic job too. I watch your feeds. It's fantastic. And I think it's wonderful that there's people like you out there.
Thank
Yeah.
you. All right, everybody. Check out the comments below. Put your information below your comments, and definitely check out Kristina's books. Until then, everybody, thank you for watching, and never give up, no matter what you're diagnosed with. And have a great raw life.
Nature's wealth, good for your health. This is the Raw Life Health Show. Raw Life, brighten up your life.